Hi, Apologetics team. One more quick video to kind of just get ourselves caught up. You should be thinking of this video as coming just before the lecture we had on classical apologetics. So this is kind of the introduction into the four basic approaches to apologetics. So if you think of it that way, it'll help you to kind of like place the discussion within a context. A fellow by the name of Edwin A. Burt wrote a book called Types of Religious Philosophy. And in it, he cataloged four principal methods of pursuing theological questions. He spoke of the rationalistic, the empirical, the authoritarian, and the intuitive. And this is really a great typology of religious philosophy, but when we apply it to apologetics in particular, then we can distinguish four basic approaches to apologetics. And in this course, we've called them classical apologetics, what Burt calls the rationalistic method. We've called the second one evidentialism, or the empirical method of apologetics. The third we're going to term reformed apologetics, and this is the authoritarian view. And then the fourth is fideism, or the intuitive view. Now each of these approaches to apologetics, though it had precursors in earlier periods of church history, has emerged as a distinct approach to apologetics that's still operational today. I mean, in fact, very much alive today. And this is helpful for us in kind of like locating or trying to situate the kind of apologetics that we would like to practice, or at least what I'm going to try to promote to you in this course. Norman Geisler claims that this general idea of classification can sort of obscure the situation on the ground. And he wants us to think a little differently. There are no four distinct boxes or types of apologetics. There's lots of overlaps, as we'll see in the discussion as it develops. And Geisler likens them sort of to points on a compass, or the primary colors on a color wheel. There are variations in each kind, but still, each one of these sort of four basic dimensions is grounded in its own explicit epistemology, and as I say, each one is practiced currently. So let it be said then at the outset, as we're sort of like trying to sort of make some disclaimers, that these four approaches are broad categories. And then secondly, that not all apologists are going to agree on the same four or five categories of apologetics. Not all apologists classified together in one of these categories is going to agree with each other. That they're in fact oversimplifications for the sake of giving a manageable approach. And they are defensible in general terms. Now, I think this is significant because what we're trying to do here is kind of get an approach to how are we going to find the sort of apologetic that allows us to blend logos and ethos and pathos and give the best apologetic in any given situation that we happen to find ourselves in. Well, here they are, and there's a table here in the notes, and also you'll also discover the sort of the quotations that we're going to be reading for each one of them. The first one we call classical apologetics. It stands to reason, and classical is the term that we're using in this course for the apologetic that emphasizes the use of logical criteria. For example, the law of non-contradiction, self-consistency, comprehensiveness, coherence. These are important things in a rational and to some extent syllogistic kind of apologetics. Of course, historically, Thomas Aquinas the great champion of this kind of rationalist apologetic. In modern evangelical apologetics, it's maybe best represented by Norman L. Geisler, and in fact, he's called a neo-Thomist, an evangelical neo-Thomist. Really interesting, sort of bridging evangelicalism and Roman Catholicism. And here's what Geisler says about this classical apologetic. He says a rationalist tries to determine all truth by human reason. That's what a rationalist does. A reasonable Christian, on the other hand, merely uses reason to discover truth that God has revealed either by general revelation or by special revelation. And so Boa and Bowman, our textbook, summarize this view with the phrase, "It stands to reason." I like that. The second view we are going to call evidentialism, and the catchphrase that Boa and Bowman use for this is "just the facts." How many of you remember there was a TV show when I was growing up, you probably don't remember, called Dragnet, and Detective Sergeant Friday always found himself, he was kind of a flat-footed kind of cop detective kind of guy, and he's always talking in that sort of way, and he used to say, "The facts, ma'am, just the facts. We don't want to hear any more, just want to know the facts, ma'am." Well, evidentialism seeks to ground the Christian faith primarily on empirically and historically verifiable facts. Evidentialists often draw a parallel between the scientific method of testing theories and theological verification. They argue that a high degree of probability, not certainty, but probability, can be established in favor of Christianity, and that this is the same kind of credibility as that associated with confirmed scientific laws. The Lutheran scholar John Warwick Montgomery is probably one of the best known evidentialist apologists of the 20th and early 21st centuries. Here's what he said. He said, "Facts are not made of wax, capable of infinite molding from the pressure of interpretive worldviews. Facts ultimately arbitrate interpretations, not the reverse, at least where good science and not bad philosophy is being practiced. If one removes his nose from philosophical speculation and breathes the fresher air of societal and personal decision-making, he will find abundant illustration that facts must carry their own interpretations, that is, must arbitrate among diverse interpretations of the data." What Montgomery is saying is that all of us use facts to make choices, to make decisions. And why wouldn't we do that when it comes to religion? And he's going to propose that we can actually build a very strong evidential case for Christianity. It's a circumstantial case. It's not a clear, rationally deductive case. It's an inductive case, but nevertheless, just the facts. The third model of apologetics that we're going to be looking at in this course is Reformed apologetics. God said it. How many of you heard that phrase? God said it. I believe it. That settles it. Done. Finished. That's what truth is, because God said it. The Reformed apologetic argues that we ought to ground reason and fact on the truth of the Christian faith, rather than trying to prove and defend the faith on the basis of reason or fact. Empirical and rational approaches to religious truth, according to the Reformed apologetic, are doomed to failure. First, through our own moral impairment, that is, the fallenness that we've already talked about, that we are fallen creatures, that our minds and our ability to apprehend and interpret and hold to divine revelation has been in one way or another impaired, And so this is the noetic version of things, that there's something has changed in our ability to receive that divine revelation. So on the one hand, we have this moral impairment. On the other, this idea that reason and empirical approaches can lead us to truth assumes the self-sufficiency of human beings to employ reason and interpret the facts independent of divine revelation. It's kind of like Bart was saying. I mean, we want our own truth. We don't want a divinely revealed truth. So most Reformed apologetics seek to show that while non-Christian belief systems are useful and can be, the source of good information, they cannot account for the validity of reason or fact or truth. But Christian theism can. Now, this approach was inspired by the theology of John Calvin, but its most influential modern advocate was a guy named Cornelius Van Til. And here's something that Van Til said. I wanted to get a quotation, but this is something that really was, his students tell us that he said this often, although I can't find it in an actual Van Til book. Listen to it, though, because it really captures the heart of this kind of thinking. The only proof of the existence of God is that without God, you couldn't prove anything. Unbelievers can count, but they cannot account for counting. You see, all truth ultimately is based on the revelation of God and on God's truth. Bowman called this strategy, God said it. And then finally, I want to talk about fideism, which is really apologetics of the heart. This word fideism has been used in a number of ways, and the term derives from the Latin word fides, which means faith, but it's commonly been used in a pejorative way. It's usually not a nice word to call somebody a fideist. It's kind of like the idea of that you should just believe it. Don't try to reason it out. Just believe in God. Just believe in Christ, apart from reasoning or evidence. But in the way we want to use it, in the way that more philosophically the term is used, fideism maintains that human knowledge of truth, including and especially religious truth, is at the bottom really a personal matter. It's a matter of the heart, a matter of the heart, the soul, rather than the will or the intellect. Bernard Ramm, in his Varieties of Christian Apologetics, says this. He says, the individual's experience of religion is so profound or so unique or so self-validating that the experience itself is its own proof. Well, man, this is a Pentecostal kind of a definition, isn't it? I mean, it's about our experience. Pascal is often regarded as having anticipated this approach, but the Christian thinker who represents fideism in its purest form is the 19th century Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. Now, we're going to be looking at these 4 approaches to apologetics and trying to figure out how best to cobble our own approach to apologetics. And that's what really the rest of this course is going to be about. Walking through each one of these 4 approaches, and then we're going to have that session of different papers that you're going to present, and some of the things that I want to bring to the table about how best to present our argument in specific contexts, how to use logos and ethos and pathos in communicating the truth of the gospel. So stay with me. Thanks for being with me right now. I'm counting on you guys actually listening and watching this video. So do it, okay?